In the fall of 2021, one of my colleagues in the Pedestrian Advisory Council recommended that I apply to be a part of an outreach group on preservation, since she knew I was an ATX walk bike role and that I was focused on race in the built environment. Bear in mind, I had come up with a timeline involving respectable advocate history and the planning history in Austin, so I knew a lot about black history in Austin from the city's perspective. I applied but got rejected. So I had put the issue behind me until I was formed about a small focus group for preservation talks. For 2 sessions that were each 2 hours, I would be compensated $15 an hour, which was not much, but I was making so little that any income would help at that point. The first one happened in the first week of December, so I was pleased to be paid by the end of the year. The meeting began with introductions, and the city liaison started describing the objectives with the program, and after she finished speaking, one long term advocate said, "Racism won't be over until white people decide it's over." I had seen him at a number of events, and it made me ecstatic that someone was thinking along the same lines as me. We both understood that the system could not be changed until the onus of liberation falls on those who cause harm rather than forcing people who experience the harm to make all the efforts. Making all marginalized people fight for justice is a fruitless endeavor leading to burnout and mental health concerns. The city liaison was taken aback because instead of us begging for a seat at the table, she actually had to listen to how the city was deliberately complicit in harm. Within the struggle, people like to groom black people to make them look good while offering next to nothing, so this was likely a shock to her system. Later in the conversation, someone mentioned the preservation officer, and I stated that the officer was highly problematic and was obnoxiously condescending when the preservation of Rosewood Courts was discussed. For those who do not know, Rosewood Courts was among the first 10 housing projects in the United States, and yes, I mean the entire country. In Austin, there were 3, and they were Rosewood Courts for the black people, Santa Rita Courts for the Latinx population, and Chalmers Courts for the white population. However, East Austin was considered prime real estate for displacement because of the city's continued disdain for the black population, and people were hoping to tear down Rosewood Courts and make more space for market real estate. Along with several others, I had gone to the meeting, and the preservation officer was an insufferable bigot, just like the majority of the Historic Preservation Commission. The city liaison bristled at my words and stated, "I need you to respect my colleague. I will not have you speaking badly about him." The underlying thought process is, I honestly do not care if you like me, but you better not make me look bad. The meeting got quiet for a few seconds, but one of the other attendees privately messaged me, too cowardly to do it in front of everyone else, to tell me that I was understood and that the preservation officer was soon expected to leave. An unmistakable pall was cast on the rest of the meeting, and I said very little, which was the entire point of cutting me off in front of everyone and reminding me of my place. People think that black women need to be incessantly resilient so they never have to manage their own behavior, but between the cancellation of the equity anti-displacement tool and the bullying on the councils, I had endured enough for the year. When people keep making excuses for terrible people, others should stop feeling comfortable relying on them when times become more difficult. The next day, I contacted the city liaison and told her that I would not be continuing with the next panel because of her deplorably racist behavior. I told her that I had expected her to listen and not demand that I maintain the dominant narrative facade in pretending that the city respected black people. Additionally, I contacted the other city liaison and declined payment because I was tired of receiving chump change to participate in self-negating circumstances. It seems that no one understands that folks became activists because we thought people might stop bullying us, not because we needed to prance around like trick ponies. No one should have to be special to survive, but that is the world that the dominant narrative created for black people. Now people want us to meekly stand and gently beg people to stop the bullying. Those people are showing us that they are irrational and incapable of change. Because there is such limited accountability when working with white women, most black women exercise the only power we are permitted: leaving. No one cares that feelings are hurt when truth is presented. Of course, the city liaison knew that this made her look incredibly inappropriate for 2 reasons. One, the city had recruited advocates and was expected to listen to more viewpoints than to honor the city's position. Two, and what made that situation even worse, the city liaison had sat with me in the same racial justice training offered while I helped create the equity anti-displacement tool, which further proved that becoming educated simply means learning how to lie better. Speaking to people in a controlling manner because someone thinks that what the other person needs is not a healthy or warm connection. I received a fake apology and a request for conversation response, which I participated in just because I avoided the second panel, but I was so thankful that this would be the last time I talked to her. The other city liaison assured me that I did not have to receive income and was disappointed in the process. So many people fail to understand that words do not negate our Black experience. No, just because someone wants to superficially absolve racism does not mean that the institutions have changed or ended. At an event in April 2023, I met the other city liaison, and she began to talk about incrementalism, which I immediately dismissed as a degrading suggestion for Black people to accept. Incrementalism is offensive because it implies the right to control when large groups of people can live free of surveillance and harassment. One has to wonder at the mental health of people who suggest, you have to wait patiently until we feel like stopping our abuse of you and using you to your detriment and our benefit. Continuing to demand time for change while avoiding adverse effects from a lack of change is abuse and manipulation. A bigot requires time for people to expend their resources in favor of phantom insecurities. People love to say these things take time. No, learning a language or cultivating a harvest takes time. It is common sense to stop harassing groups of people someone feels has provoked them merely by existing. When someone says these things take time, they are just announcing that they feel entitled to other people's time. By promoting incrementalism, the dominant narrative is saying, just keep waiting for our behavior to improve at your expense. In fact, because I had been participating in various advocacy programs, I was approached to participate in a revamped discussion on equitable preservation in the fall of 2023, but by then I had learned that the city would block any and all efforts to do the right thing. Bear in mind, the city had already engaged a preservation committee, which I had been rejected from, and had to remove myself from the conversation, demanding that I praise bigots because they were staff. First, I agreed because I thought I could use the money, but then that same spirit that caused me to protect myself the first time welled within me. I told the recruiter that it was emotionally abusive to keep demanding that Black people participate in equity initiatives that keep being blocked, and that the city was based on white power and racial hatred. That coward of a recruiter not only failed to respond to my statement, but then ignored my changing my address when I needed to do my taxes at the beginning of 2024 until I involved other city staff. After the fake equity plan that the city avoided implementing for 3 years based on legal review, there was news about a historic Black site being dismantled because whatever they decided the reason was.